All right, good morning. Good morning. We are moving fast through this summer, are we not? Yes. And we're catching up. We're in almost to the last of July here. We will finish up that with this week and next week, and then we'll be into August. And we've already had those long, hot summer days of August, and came in July for us. All of that kind of stuff with the high heat and temperatures near 100 and all that. Well, we're looking at the international lesson this week, and next week we're in the book of Psalms. There's some similarities that we're looking at. This week is Psalms 119, next week is Psalms 130. The irony is that Psalms 119 is the longest psalm in the Bible. Matter of fact, it's the longest chapter in the Bible, and we'll be looking at today. Psalms 130 is a very short chapter, and not the shortest. Psalms 117 is a shorter one than Psalms 130, but it is a very short one. Both of them are technically a lament. The psalmist in Psalms 119 has a feeling of sadness. He talks about, I'm in the depths. In Psalms 130, again, we're in the depths. We can talk about it, the depths of despair, but we see a movement, as we'll talk about next week, that's very quick in Psalms 130. In Psalms 119, even though it's a lament, it's also a teaching psalm. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. Now, we're only going to look at a portion of it, but I'm going to talk about another portion of it as well. Psalms 119 is what we call an acrostic. That is that if you look at it, and sometimes in your old King James Bibles and some of the newer translations, there's a letter or a word at the top of different sections of Psalms 119, like Aleph, Beth, Gimel, Daleth. Those are the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and each one of those, there'll be 22 sections in Psalms 119. Each of those sections begins with a succeeding letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Not only that, but each line in that section begins with that same Hebrew letter. Now, we look at it and we're seeing different letters and all that. That's because words are spelled differently in different languages. But in the beginning portion of Psalms 119, that first section, every sentence in that begins with the letter Aleph, which is R-A in our English language. And we take it from the Latin and the Germanic, Teutonic languages as well. So we're going to be looking at that. It's a teaching tool. Now, what is it teaching? It's teaching about the law. That's the great thing about it. And you'll find many different words used. You'll find the word statutes, the word commandments, the word law, the commands, different words that would be a similar word or a synonym of the word law. And so he's talking about the law and its goodness. Now, one of the verses that we probably memorized as kids is Psalms 119, verse 9. Now, when I learned it, it was literally, how shall a young man keep pure his ways or cleanse his ways? With gender inclusiveness, they've changed it to, how can young people keep their way pure? So it carries the same idea. By guarding it according to your word. There's the word, carries with it the idea of the law, or the commands of God. By guarding it according to your word, with my whole heart I seek you. Do not let me stray from your commandments. You see, there's right there in that word, commandments or law, or your ordinances. The idea is the law is good. Now, that comes in there. As I say, it's a teaching tool, but it has a very different perspective than Paul. Now, when we were talking about Paul here a few weeks ago, looking at Romans as well as Galatians, where Paul has a limited view, kind of a negative view of the law, and that's because he sees it in a different situation. Paul was a Pharisee. He talks about that in Philippians. He was a Pharisee of Pharisees, as touching the law, perfect. Paul had tried to live by the law completely, without grace, without, being proud of himself and of his keeping of the law. He tried to keep. In Romans chapter 7, he talks about his struggle. He said, I would not have known what coveting was if it had not been for the law. Now, I think that we know what it is to be jealous. Even if we haven't been told that we shouldn't be jealous, I think we have an idea that we shouldn't be jealous, but we sometimes are. And sometimes we want what somebody else has, whether we're jealous or envious or whatever, and we're angry that we don't have it. Paul is saying, I wouldn't have known that was wrong if it hadn't been for the law. Well, I think you probably would have known it was wrong, but the law told you it was wrong, and you couldn't do it, and you needed grace. Well, we find grace in the Old Testament too. And I find grace in Psalms 119, where he talks about this. How can a young person keep their way pure? By taking heed to the law. The law can protect us. It can help us. It can be a guardrail. They didn't have guardrails in Paul's day, but it can be a guardrail to keep us from going off the cliff. Speed limits have the same purpose. Yesterday I was coming down Route 81, and traffic was heavy. We were going along fairly decent, not exactly at the full speed. 65 was the full speed. We were slowing down, speeding up. This gentleman on a motorcycle came between me and the truck, semi-truck in the next lane. I mean, if that truck had swerved a little bit, if I had swerved a little bit, I didn't see him coming. All of a sudden, here goes 70 miles an hour he's going by us. And the law said you don't drive 70 to begin with, but you sure don't drive on the yellow line down the middle of the road. But he was gone now. Did he get away with it? I guess he got away with it. I didn't see any wrecked motorcycle on down the road any place. But the thing about it is that he created a hazard for himself and for other people as well. Anything. The law is there to protect us. It will not save us. It's up to us to obey it. And even if we don't, and sometimes we don't, it's up to us to ask forgiveness. And that's where grace comes in again. And that comes in through the cross. It came in through the law in the Old Testament as well. So there's a positive view of the law. And he will take about, and for instance, he will talk about God's unfailing love. Verse 76. He talks about that. That's part of your reading for the day. I got to get over here to the right section here. Verse 76. Let your steadfast love become my comfort, according to your promise to your servant. Let your mercy, there's grace. Let your mercy come to me that I may live. For your law is my delight. That's a positive view. He's saying, I find strength in it. Now, the word delight is very seldom found in the Old Testament. It's only found about less than a dozen times. Half of them are right in this chapter of 119. And that one verse was, for your law is my delight. But in this chapter there are 4 other places where the psalmist talks about the law or the commandments or whatever being my delight. Not God's delight, my delight. Now, Micah in the 7th chapter, the 18th verse, Micah 17 says, the Lord delights in mercy. In other words, God enjoys being forgiving. I don't always delight in mercy. I don't always delight in forgiving. There are times when somebody says something to me and I just cringe under it. And I have to deal with some anger and some unforgiveness. And I don't delight in mercy. God looks for the opportunity to forgive. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't take sin seriously. He does. He takes it so seriously that he knows what the consequences will do to us and what our sins will do to others. And so if there's an opportunity to bring healing and forgiveness, God delights in doing that. And that's a part of that positive view that the psalmist has of the law and of its guiding principles in our lives. And he speaks of it as being a teacher. Now, Paul will speak of the law as being our guardian or our slave that kind of walks with us, not as our teacher, but the psalmist talks of the law is our teacher. It teaches us the right way to go. Now, Paul, the writer, will also say, as you read in Psalms 119, that God brings order out of our chaos. He brings life out of our death. He brings light out of our darkness. That's a part of what it is. And as you read Psalms 119, again, it's a long chapter. If you just read the parts that's in our lesson, 73 through 80, you get the flavor of that still in that. But if you read the whole thing, you get the idea of God. We create chaos in our lives. And God seeks to bring order back out of it. Time and time again, brings order out of it. We do things and they hurt people. And God seeks to bring healing out of those hurts. We do things that create darkness and fear. And God seeks to bring comfort and life out of all of that. That's part of that being. There's a poem, and I can't quote it to you, but it's called The Anvil, and I've read it many times. And it talks about a blacksmith's anvil, and this guy walked back. Now this is a long time ago. We don't have blacksmiths that much anymore. Sometimes to make shoes for horses and stuff, but that's about it. And we call them farriers now instead of blacksmiths. But there are blacksmiths around, and they have an anvil. Now we had one when I was a kid. It was an old drill head that was used. They drilled for oil on our land. There was oil sometimes they'd find on top of the soil, and they said, got to be more oil down below. Well, they drilled and they did. I used to walk back in the pasture, and there was a big casing there of steel casing where they drilled and didn't get any. And I don't know where we got that drill head hammer that was there, but we used that as an anvil. My gosh, that you pound on that, pound on that, pound on that. Anyway, the person goes by, the blacksmith stops, sees the anvil, and then laying on the ground is the broken hammers. The heads have cracked and broken, and they're laying there. And he said, how many anvils did you go through for so many hammers to be broken? And the blacksmith says, one. The anvil is tough. The hammers break. And then he goes on to say, that's how God's word is. You can take all the pounding you want on it, and it still stays there. And it doesn't break up because it's made tough and strong. Well, that's what the psalmist sees in the Psalms and the commandments of God, is the toughness that helps us to live and not to fail. Now, second thing I want to get up, and our time is hastening on, he says a couple of things that I think are very important in that section of Scripture. He says, those, in 74, those who fear you shall see me and rejoice. In other words, what he's saying is, they'll look and see how good the law has been in my life, in guiding me in the right ways to go. And they will see the benefit of that, and they will want to follow themselves. They'll see me. Now, he says that once in verse 74, but go down to verse 79. Let those who fear you turn to me so that they may know of your decrees. Again, it's an invitation to look at his life to see the benefits of it, that God does bring order out of chaos. He brings light out of darkness. He brings healing out of pain. He brings life out of death. And that's the great thing. And again, I think that's a part of why the word delight is found more times in this chapter than all the other places in the Bible put together. It's found that many times. There is a delight in it. Now, if you go back to Psalms 1, you have that same experience again. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor sits in the seat of sinners, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He's like a tree planted by the streams of water that brings forth fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. We've had some dry days here. We've had to water our tomatoes, we had to water our flowers. They wilted from lack of moisture. He said if you're planted by the stream, now we have some blackberry bushes by the stream down there, and they're way out in the stream, I mean in the little pond that I built, I can't get to them, you know, because if I walk in that mud, I'm going to leave my boots or my feet or everything in that mud. So I can look at those blackberries, but they're by the stream, so they've gotten moisture when other blackberries are drying up and withering on the vine. All right, one of the things that I found in this, and if I go back to Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse, I wanted to mention Paul in 1 Corinthians as well as Philippians talks about follow me as I follow Christ. Now that's a good statement. Follow me as I follow Christ. And that's what God says. I want to bless you, and I want you to be a blessing to others. In other words, I want them to sense that you're following me is the way to live. And so they'll want to follow me just as you do. But I'm going back to the book of Deuteronomy, and we'll close with that. But it's a neat thing. This is Moses' farewell address to the people of Israel. So, now Israel, give heed to the statutes and the ordinances that I am teaching you to observe, so that you may live to enter and occupy the land that the Lord your God promised to your ancestors and is giving to you. You must neither add anything to what I command you, nor take away anything from it, but keep the commandments of the Lord your God with which I am charging you. Now, that same phrase is found in the book of Revelation, where it says in the 22nd chapter, don't add to what I've said, don't take away from what I've said. Just listen to what I'm saying and observe it. Now, I'm going to skip a few lines here where he talks about the nations will see that you are a righteous people because you're following my commands and observances. Not because you're necessarily great people. You go to Deuteronomy 7, God tells them through Moses, not because you were the strongest. It's not because you were even the best. It's because I chose to set my love upon you and to be your God and you to be my people. That's in Deuteronomy 7. But I want to go on here. See, just as the Lord my God has charged me, I now teach you statutes and ordinances for you to observe in the land that you are about to enter and occupy. You must observe them diligently, for this will show your wisdom and discernment to the people who, when they hear all of these statutes, will say, surely this great nation is a wise and discerning people. For what other great nation has a God so near? That's the great word. Is people will say, this God must be near that you serve because you are so observant. And that would be for us too, so that people know that God is near. He's not far away. He's not off in a distant universe and realm that he doesn't see and pay attention. He is closer than a brother. Closer than our breath, even, as the Bible says. Nearer than your breath. This is the God who calls us to live according to his ways. Not because we're good, because we fail, we need forgiveness, we need mercy and grace, but because it's the best way to live. And he gives us strength to do it and to follow through. Well, we must pray, and then we'll be looking at next week. Father, thank you for your grace and goodness to us again this day. Thank you for your word that gives us guide rails and guardrails and warnings and information that we need so that we can live right with your Spirit's help. All this we thank you for in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, see you next week, folks.